Why are some young Americans mad at Wall Street? One reason may be that the recession has hit them a lot harder. New census data show that U.S. households earned 7% less in 2010 than they did in 2000, and that the youngest workers suffered the most. The median income for householders aged 25 and younger absolutely crashed. It was down 20% over the decade. Householders aged 25 to 34 lost 11% adjusted for inflation. And those numbers don't capture the whole problem either. 1 out of every 7 Americans aged 25 to 34 now lives with their parents, usually because they don't earn enough to live on their own. They aren't the heads of their households, so their measly earnings don't even show up in these statistics. What made the crash particularly painful for young adults was that back in the 1990s, household incomes actually rose. So their anger comes from seeing other people enjoying good times, or maybe even getting a little taste of good times themselves, and then having their hopes snatched away. But young adults are adapting, and their choices are bringing challenges to private label manufacturers, also a few opportunities. Young adults lead very different lives than they did 2 decades ago. For example, a lot fewer of them are married and raising kids. The number of unmarried but cohabiting couples has nearly tripled since 1990, and the total number of births in the United States declined 7% between 2007 and 2010. A lot more people are becoming parents without bothering to get married, too. 38% of cohabiting couples are raising children. This matters because cohabiting couples don't keep house the same way married couples do. They're less likely to keep joint checking accounts or eat meals together. Their kitchens are usually smaller and simpler, which is why young adult spending on major appliances declined 35% over the decade. There's no fine china, fewer dinner parties, less planning in general. There's more of an emphasis on getting by from day to day. Expensive food is not selling like it used to. About 10% of Americans now say that they rarely eat meat. About 7 million Americans say they never eat meat, and most vegetarians are young women. Over the last decade, households aged 25 to 34 spent 39% less on beef, 40% less on pork, and about 20% less on poultry and fish. But at the same time, young adults spent 20% more on fresh fruit, and they also spent more on vegetables and eggs. So for a growing share of households, meat is more often a seasoning and less often a main dish. Young adults are also driving less. The number of miles traveled by car among persons aged 25 to 34 dropped 35% between 2001 and 2009, even as the number of miles traveled by baby boomers aged 45 to 64 increased 19%. In one recent survey, 80% of young adults say that it's difficult for them to pay the cost of owning a car. And big companies are listening. Wal-Mart is testing a home delivery service that charges just $5 on orders of $40 or more. With prices like that, households in congested big cities might be able to downsize from 2 cars to 1. This is just one reason why home delivery services in big metro areas are poised for rapid growth. We're seeing another big change in how young adults get their information. They spent 55% less on printed reading material over the decade, but despite the overall decline in spending power, young adults spent 64% more on online access and other computer services. This isn't extravagant because their spending on fees and admissions also took a dive. Young adults are spending their evenings surfing around on social media like Facebook and YouTube because that's cheap entertainment. And Walmart's paying attention to this trend too. You can connect to a local Walmart store's Facebook page and get a daily message with all their special offers. Of course, the lean times have huge implications for the generation that's now being formed. Only about 2/3 of American children are being raised by married couples now. Only a bare majority of kids live in households that can easily afford to take vacations and buy expensive Christmas presents. And only about 1/3 of children live in households that earn enough to save for college. The bottom line is, many of today's kids are growing up watching their parents economize and simplify their lives, and those lessons could stick with them for life. This is Brad Edmondson for PLMALive.